You ever visit a website and it just feels snappy? Like everything just loads instantly? While another site just chugs along? Well, I promise you, it's not magic. It's a mindset. And today, we're going to open up the playbook on how to master your web assets so you can build apps that don't just run fast, they feel absolutely effortless. So let's just ask the tough question right up front. Is your website secretly overweight? Think about it. Every single unoptimized asset, every big image, every chunky font file, it's like a heavy suitcase you're forcing your users to carry. It slows them down, it's frustrating, and it just ruins the whole experience. It is time for a high-performance diet. And look, this goes way, way beyond just compressing a few images and calling it a day. Real asset optimization is a systematic strategy. We're talking about looking at the whole picture, reducing the bytes that get downloaded, cutting down on CPU work, using less memory, and minimizing those back and forth network trips. We're making the entire process smarter and a whole lot leaner. All right, so here's our game plan. We've just talked about what this really means. Next, we are going to tackle the big three, the main performance killers. After that, we'll shine a light on some unsung heroes that often get overlooked. And finally, we'll wrap it all up by talking about how to make this an everyday optimization mindset. Okay, first up, the heavyweights. We're diving into what I call the big three. These are the assets that are, more often than not, the main culprits behind a slow, clunky website. Seriously, if you can get these three things right, you've already won half the performance battle. Now, this probably isn't going to be a huge shock to anyone, but images are almost always the biggest performance bottleneck. On most websites, they make up the single largest chunk of data by file size. Getting them wrong can be a total disaster for your load times, but getting them right, that's one of the biggest wins you can get. So, what's the playbook here? Well, first off, you've got to embrace modern tech. Use amazing tools like Next/Image and modern formats like AVIF or WebPay. They are so much smaller than old-school JPEGs. Second, you have to be strategic. Only preload the absolutely critical images, the ones that are above the fold. Everything else? Lazy load it. Don't make the user download what they can't even see yet. And finally, be responsive. You should never, ever force a tiny mobile phone to download a massive desktop-sized image. It's just wasteful. All right, next in our lineup of performance heavyweights, fonts. It's so easy to just forget about them, but every single font family, every weight you add is another file that has to be downloaded. And trust me, those kilobytes add up way faster than you think. And this is exactly where modern tools can be your best friend. Something like Next/Font is a total game changer because it automates all the hard parts of font optimization. It handles something called subsetting, which basically means it only ships the characters you're actually using. It preloads them for you, and it gets rid of those super annoying layout shifts and flashes of unstyled text. It's a massive, massive win. So to round out our big three, let's talk about CSS. And here's the one crucial thing you have to understand. A web browser will not show a single pixel of your content until it has downloaded and parsed your CSS. This is what we call render blocking. And if you have a huge, bloated CSS file, you're literally forcing your users to just stare at a blank white screen. The solution here is to be smart and modular. You want to use modern approaches like Tailwind or CSS modules. They are what's called tree shakeable, which is just a fancy way of saying they automatically get rid of any CSS styles you're not actually using. This is the complete opposite of the old way, where you'd ship one giant global CSS file that was packed with styles the user would never, ever see. Okay, so we've wrangled the heavyweights. Now it's time to talk about the unsung heroes of performance. These are the smaller, often overlooked assets that, when you optimize them, can have a surprisingly huge impact on your site's speed. Let's kick things off with icons. The old way of doing this was with icon fonts, and they were just incredibly inefficient. You'd have to download an entire set of characters just to use a handful of icons. The modern, much smarter way is to use SVG icons. They're tiny, they stay perfectly crisp at any size, you can style them right with CSS, and they don't require any JavaScript. Honestly, it's a no-brainer. Next up, let's talk about compression. I absolutely love this analogy. Think of it like vacuum sealing your assets before you send them across the internet. It works on all of your text space files, your JavaScript, your CSS, your HTML, and it makes them dramatically smaller and so much faster to download. And the impact here is just staggering. I mean, look at this. A 100 kilobyte file can shrink by 70% with just standard gzip compression. But if you use a more modern algorithm like Brotli, which most CDNs now support right out of the box, you can push that all the way to an 80% reduction. That is a massive saving in bandwidth.
But hey, it's not just about how big the files are, it's also about how fast you can deliver them. That's where a content delivery network, or a CDN, comes into play. By caching your files on servers all around the globe, a CDN makes sure they're physically closer to your users, which just crushes latency. And on top of that, we always want to minimize the number of requests. So instead of making 20 different requests for 20 different icons, just combine them into a single SVG spray. Fewer requests always means a faster load time.
So we have covered a whole lot of tactics, but the real game changer here is turning all of these from just one-off fixes into a consistent daily habit. And that brings us to our final and maybe most important section, adopting the optimization mindset. This whole mindset is really about being proactive. You don't want to wait for the browser to stumble upon what's important. No. Instead, you want to give it hints. You want to tell it what to load before it even realizes it needs it. This gives you a massive head start on getting those critical assets to the user. And we have two really key tools for this. First is preload. This is for assets that are absolutely essential for the current page to render. Think about your main font or that big hero image. Then there's prefetch. This is for assets the user will probably need on the next page they visit. It's a subtle difference, but using them correctly can make your site feel incredibly fast. But here's the million-dollar question, right? How do you actually know what to fix? All these strategies are great in theory, but if you're not measuring, you're just guessing. So let's talk about how to find the real performance bottlenecks in your app. And the great news is you already have access to an incredible set of free tools. Google's Lighthouse gives you a fantastic high-level performance report. The Chrome DevTools Network tab lets you get into the weeds of every single request. And tools like the Next.js Build Analyzer can show you exactly what's making up your final bundle size. This is your performance auditing toolkit ready to go. So when you're using these tools, what are you hunting for? Well, here are the key red flags. Are there any unusually huge assets, like a 2 MB hero image? Yikes. Is there a long waterfall of requests, like loading 3 different font families? Can you spot any of those render-blocking CSS files we talked about? And are there any text-based files that haven't been compressed? These are your prime targets. You see, when you bring all these pieces together, when you tackle the big 3, when you optimize those unsung heroes, and when you really embrace this mindset of continuous measurement and improvement, you're doing more than just making your site faster. This is how you build apps that feel lightweight, fast, and truly polished. So, I'll leave you with a little challenge. What's the one unsung hero you can tackle in your own project today? Maybe it's finally switching to SVG icons, or maybe it's just enabling Brotli compression. Whatever it is, take that first small step. You'll be on your way to building a faster, more polished web. Happy optimizing!